Welcome to a Prevent Connect podcast, where we explore the prevention of violence against women. This is a project of the California Coalition Against Sexual Assault.
So again, I'm Tanji, and I work at Break the Cycle. Have y'all heard of Break the Cycle before? Okay. So I won't spend too much time. There we go. Spending on Break the Cycle and what we do. So we're a national organization, and our focus is on ending relationship abuse because we truly believe that everyone deserves a healthy relationship. So our programs are Leadership and Engagement, which is a program that I'm a part of. We have Policy and Legal Services, that's out of our Washington, D.C. office. So we provide legal services for young people who may have experienced violence from 12 to 24. And then we do capacity building. So we support other organizations in leveling up their youth programs, but also provide any other assistance that we can. So today we're gonna do a few things. And I don't wanna spend too much time on this, but I wanna make sure that we stay focused in what we're doing. So we're gonna explore youth-centered, youth-led initiatives. So we're gonna focus on what Break the Cycle does. We are really, truly youth-led, and I'm gonna talk a lot about what that looks like for us. We're gonna talk about new methods for delivering education and kind of moving away from what we're typically used to. And then we're gonna talk about being adult-driven and adult-supportive, because those are two different things. And talk about why it's important to have a little bit of both. And then finally, we're going to talk about some strategies, and I'm going to show you all some examples of some things that we have done at Break the Cycle. So to get us started and to kind of set a space, I want to talk about the different ways that we can educate. So first, we can either train or we can educe. So when we train, that means that there's an instructor, right? There's a pupil. Usually when I think of train, I think it's something that is like super strict, it's guided. And when we train too, we look at people as being a blank slate. We are giving you this information so that you can be better, and it's gonna be probably the same for everybody. So this is because we want people to be in order and all have the same information. But another thing you can do is you can also educe. And to educe, that means to draw from. So that means that we don't look at people as blank slates. We can look at them as seeds. So you don't teach a seed how to become a tree, right? You pour into it. It's gonna become what it's gonna become. But if it has the right nourishment and it has all the good things, then that's when it can bloom and go to its full potential. So while we're doing this, I want to think about those differences between training and educing, because I'm more leaning on the side of educing, but I think we still need a little bit of both. So like I said, when we educe, we draw from. So that means that when we're working with young people, they already have a lot of stuff inside of them. They already know a whole lot, but sometimes we might give them information that they already know, and it's not as effective. So instead, I like us to think about how we can draw from what they already have, what they're already good at, will already make sense to them, what they already believe in. So that's gonna be like the focus throughout the rest of our time together. So like was mentioned when I was introduced, I've been a prevention educator since I graduated from college in 2011. So I started off as a community educator at a place in Detroit, right outside Detroit, but still was doing prevention education in Detroit. And then I came to Break the Cycle, still doing prevention education. So what it looked like for me was every day I would go to a school, I would have my PowerPoint, and we would do this PowerPoint, and I would leave, and I would come back for day 2. I would give a quiz, like a pop quiz with candy, and then I'd teach more information, and then at the end we'll have like a post-test. And then I would do it again the next day at a different school. And that was my day every single day. And there was little variation in what I said. If you asked me, I could probably give you the entire presentation now, and I haven't worked there for like a year and a half. But that's because it was so repetitive, and I knew it like the back of my hand. So it wasn't like I was pulling anything else. I was treating everyone the same way. So some common methods we use when we do education, how many prevention educators are in here? So Oh, my people, okay. All right, so we use examples and definitions, right? That's what we did. We should start off, this is what dating abuse is. This is what sexual assault is. And we start off with that. And we give some examples about what that would look like. We use a lot of statistics. I know one presentation we had on our day 2, it was all about, can you remember these statistics? And they would remember the numbers, but they would not remember what the numbers meant. I say 1 in what? Oh, 1 in 4. What does that mean? I don't remember. You remember the number and you want some candy. That's why you raise your hand. Or they will remember the opposite. Like, I know that it happens to men. I know that happens. Say, but how many? I don't remember. And then scare tactics are an easy one. We'll tell like the most sad story we can muster up. We tell the worst kind of stories because we know that's an attention grabber. Sometimes you might start with that. I would never forget the way that I learned about tampons was because of toxic shock syndrome. And they told you will die if you use a tampon. That's all I remembered. And they weren't really trying to scare, they were trying to say, like, be responsible, but that's not what I got out of it. I got you would die if you use a tampon. And then lectures. So sometimes we sit there and we talk. We have our PowerPoint and we talk, and then heads go down, and people get sleepy, and it's like, oh my goodness, and you know that you're just kind of talking to the teacher or the wall or yourself, and you say a joke or something just to get somebody's attention, but we lecture. Kind of what I'm doing right now, and I'm going to try not to lecture so much, but we do those things. And then we have activities. And the activities are the good part. That's the part that are interesting. That's the parts that they're really into, but then once the activity is over, it's over. Or the other part about activities are, they work differently for everybody. I know we used to do a role play, and this we did a role play, and every single school we went to was different. Like, one school would be great, and I'm like, that was phenomenal. They really got that. Another school is like, can you please stop laughing? We have to get through this. So activities definitely do work, and all these things work, and they can be effective. We know it's effective. We do evaluations. We do pre and post tests. We know that they're getting that information. But are they actually learning something that's beneficial for them? Or are they doing it for us? So that's something that we have to think about too. So I want to tell you a little bit more about me and how I got started. You heard some of it in the introduction. So like I said, I'm from Detroit, and I went to high school a little bit outside of Detroit. And when I got there, believe it or not, I was not the best kid in the world. My 9th grade year, I got suspended from school because I was essentially slut-shaming a girl, like calling her phone and slut-shaming her, and I got suspended for it. So around that same time, I auditioned for a play because I really wanted to do acting. I wanted to be in theater, and our theater department was excellent. So I said, I need to do this. And I got a role in the play and everything, but as soon as I got suspended, my mom said, you don't have a role in that play, not anymore. And so I was like, okay, I'm just gonna sneak into it. So I thought I was slick, and I said, I'm just gonna go to rehearsals anyway. My mom was not having it, so she came to the school during the conference and talked to the director and the acting teacher and said, you see my daughter? If you see her, you let me know. Here's my number. She cannot be in this play. And I was devastated because I really wanted to do acting. That was something I really, truly wanted to do. I wanted to be a part of this theater department. So the acting teacher, she asked me, like, do you have my class for next semester? And I was like, I don't know, I was thinking about doing it. She said, sign up for my class. So I said, okay. So during my sophomore year, that was my first time taking the acting class. And shortly after it started, she asked me to come help her with the traveling play. And I was like, okay. I thought I was going to be acting. I wasn't. I was carrying boxes of props. I was making sure that everybody had what they needed. I was essentially a helper during the process. But the play was about teen dating violence. So I got to see it every single time we went out. And we would go out to different schools. We would present at our schools. And eventually, I did get a chance to act in it. But it wasn't like we just got to go up there and act. And honestly, the reason why I wanted to do the traveling play is because I was able to get out of school. So I was like, I get to do acting stuff. I get to go out of school. It's a win for me. But I was learning, and I didn't even realize I was learning. And so by the time I was a senior and I was one of the performers in there, I was able to explain to other people what we were doing. We eventually did it like on a DVD, and we had like this big screening, and we were able to share what we knew. We had no idea that we were being peer educators and peer leaders. We thought that we were just acting, and that was it. And the cool part about our acting program is that we had athletes, We had folks that didn't talk that much. We had people who were really, truly into acting and theater. We had people who just like maybe messed up in school, and the acting teacher found somebody like me and was like, you need to take my class. And that's really, when I say I got my start, I say I started in high school. And I didn't realize I started in high school until I got a career, and I was like, wait a minute, we used to do this stuff. And at that point, I had no idea that you can make a career out of doing that. This past weekend, I just had my high school reunion, and people were like, oh, you know, what are you doing now? What's going on? I would say, oh, you remember when we did Into the Light? I do that. And they're like, oh, yeah, I remember Into the Light. Like, oh, that was so fun. It was so cool because we talked about being a bystander. We talked about what sexual abuse looks like. We talked about the different methods for it. So it was a really cool program, and that's honestly, I say that's where I got my start. So after that, I graduated, and I ended up working at a place called Turning Point, and that's in Michigan in Mount Clemens, and I was a community educator, and that is where I just, like, this is what I want to do for the rest of my life. And so that's what educing looks like. When you pull from something somebody already has. If I would never taken that acting class, I probably wouldn't be here. I probably would have been, I wanted to be a forensic psychologist or something, or I wanted to, like, I didn't know what I want. My mom wanted me to be a nurse, so I was going to do that. I was actually a nursing major at first. So if she wouldn't have, like, pulled from what was already in me, I would have never had the educational knowledge. I probably would have never been really interested in it because it wasn't what I wanted to do. I had no connection to it besides the acting piece of it. So transitioning, I want to talk about Break the Cycle and what we're doing with our youth-led initiative. So I started working at Break the Cycle a year and 7 days ago, so right on my 1-year anniversary. And when I first started, one of my interview questions was like, say you had like a youth coalition group that was like 12 to 24. What would you do to engage them? And I'm like, 12 to 24? That's impossible because it's too wide of an age range. What do you mean? I wouldn't do that. I would split them up. But I had to come with a clever answer, and I didn't think I just said that. I said, you can't. You can't do it. You have to split them up. You have to find something that each group likes, and then find ways they can work together. Maybe some peer education. They liked my answer, so that's why I got the job. And when we first started, we had a couple people, and we have been trying all kind of things to get young people involved in this group that we were trying to create. And we were like putting it on Facebook, nobody bit. We were like, can you do this? And at this point, we did not have a name. It was completely nameless. It had no logo, no nothing. We were just like, hey, we're gonna start this thing from scratch, and we don't know what it's gonna be because it has to be youth-led, so we can't pick anything for it. They have to pick everything. And that's what we did. They picked everything. So we eventually used an app called GroupMe. Have y'all heard of GroupMe before? So we used GroupMe because I used it with my friends, and I was like, well, we talking here all day, but I know sometimes I can leave. And I know from prior experiences that phone calls don't always work, emails don't always work, and you have your cell phone in your hand all the time. So why not? So that's what we did. And it came to like recruiting people that we knew. And it came like I had cousins and friends and people that I knew from back home and whoever else I could find, like, hey, we have this group we want to start about relationships and we don't have a name for it. Will you help us name it? What do you want to see out of it? So we had these conversations. It was over a weekend, and eventually the name Let's Be Real came up. After that, we picked out some logos that we thought were really nice, but they were like trashing everything that we picked out. And they were like, that is ugly, that looks old. And they were really honest with us, and we appreciated that. And eventually we got our cool logo on the side, and they liked the colors. They were like, yeah, we love this. And I'll actually show you guys a screenshot of that conversation so you can see how candid it was and how honest it was. So our motivation behind doing Let's Be Real is that we know that every day young people are trying to navigate through relationships. It can be crushes, breakups, sexuality, first, hookups, but they don't always have the space to talk about it, to learn about it, or to share their experiences. And for Let's Be Real, we want to create that space. So we are grounded in a belief that everyone deserves a healthy relationship, and that you can take action in your own way. Being an activist does not mean that you have to be super involved and show up at a meeting every couple weeks. Being an activist can mean a bunch of things. So what we do is we amplify their voices. We use what's already inside them, the things that they already like, that they're already into, and we give them that space. We do it mainly online because it's easier, but we do some in-person things too. We have in-person opportunities, and we tap into their creativity. So we focus a lot on like the arts and creative things because that is what can draw people. But even so, we have one person who's like, well, I want to be an engineer, so how can this help me? And I was like, it was like someone we knew. I was like text messaging him like, well, I mean, you can all like, are you on Snapchat? Are you on Twitter or Facebook? Like, yeah, repost. That's what you can do. Share what we have. That's a part of it. You're a part of the team. If you sign up and you say that you want to just help out and share, then you are a member. You're a part of it because it's not a club. It's not a coalition. It's a movement. And when we build movements, it's you activate in your own way. A movement starts when you have little bitty things that happen. And everything that we do is youth-led. Nothing that we put out, young people have not seen. We ask everything. And we give them that space. If they say, I think I want to do this, go for it. And I'll show you a couple examples of things that they've done that they've came up with themselves. So like I said, we started off with 2 people. Now this is where we are now. We had 2 people, and now we're at about 310 members, and we're in 42 states. So if you see your state up here that's blank, come see me, because we want everyone to be involved. And we start at individual levels, but we also work with community organizations too. So if someone says, hey, I'm not 12 to 24, but I think this is really cool, and I work with young people, I'm like, oh, cool. So what do you want to do? How do you want to be involved? How can we help you? How can we support you? How can we, show people what you're doing, and how can we help? And to us, that's being a part of the movement too. So we have different teams. So we do have some structure. That's a part of it. It's not like a free-for-all. So we have our events team, and they can host real talks, so I'll talk a little bit about that. And they help us plan out Teen Dating Violence Awareness Month. Our social media team, they do platform takeovers. Most of the time, that's on Snapchat or Facebook we've done too. And they plan and implement online campaigns. So sometimes a person might see an article or something, they'll send it to us. Or we're like, people send tweets. Like, they just say, you should tweet this. And we do it. We have a creative team, so they design artwork, they write blogs, and they create videos and whatever else to show their creativity. And then we have our outreach team. So they do recruitment, team building. We call them our B team. So they're the ones who are like super involved. They help us out with, like, we had a merchandising, we call them idea flows on GroupMe, and those are the folks that were in there. So we said, hey, we want some stuff. What kind of stuff do you all want? And they were like, we want some socks. I said, that's cool. I would wear some Let's Be Real socks. We had some cool slogans. I would wear that. And people were supporting in that, and they had people like, yeah, that's a good idea. I would wear some socks too. I never thought about wearing socks. I would have said, let's get some stickers, which is cool, but I would have never thought about that, which is why I love it so much, because we just kind of put out a question and they just kind of go, and I'm like, that's out there, but hey, we'll try to make it happen if we can. So one of our signature programs are Real Talk Sessions. And this is where we mold Let's Be Real with how we do education. So we are really trying to move away from that training method for education and go more into educing. So at Real Talk Sessions are open, honest conversations about relationships. It is literally me sitting, or someone else on Break the Cycle, or sometimes our young people do it too, sitting in a circle with a list of questions, and I say, pick a number 1 through 15. Whatever number you pick, that is what we're going to talk about today. So say they pick 2, and 2 is about jealousy. Then that's what we're talking about. Is it okay to be jealous? Simple question. And from those questions, we get a bunch of conversations. So they say yes, no, maybe, sometimes, kinda, and then I ask why. And then what about this? And go from whatever they say, so that the conversation is meaningful for them. It's not just me saying, this is what jealousy is, and they don't care about it. One of my favorite questions we asked is, tell me a story about your first crush. I was at one place, And that question came up, and from that, we talked about rejection. We talked about first loves. Someone talked about their first crush was abusive, and they didn't realize that person was abusive. And then we just so happened to be at a place called Smile in Washington, D.C. For young LGBTQ youth. And they were like, well, I had my first crush when I was 17 because I didn't realize I liked boys, or I didn't want to tell anybody that I did. And then how do you tell somebody if you do like them and they're the same sex? Like, how do you even approach that situation? And we created this conversation just based off of one question. So that's what I mean by, like, again, I'm going to use that word educing and pulling from what's important to them and not what's important for me. And so we do it in a way that's strategic. We do it in a way that they're able to, we're still getting the information that we want. We're still seeing how much they learn. We still do pre and post tests. We still do those things. But we make our questions kind of fit into those spaces. And we get specific in some cases, but some cases we don't. And if they want to move on, we move on, and we talk about something else. So when you came in, you got a little piece of paper, and some people had some instructions, some people didn't. So I want you all, if you haven't done it already, to take a minute and do what the paper says. So let's talk about this. First, the two assignments were either you can connect the dots or you had to draw a bug. So what kind of bugs did you all draw? Caterpillar, ladybug, butterfly, a bee, ooh, dragonfly, a spider. Oh, you made up your own bug, I dig. You made your own bug up, okay. If it has legs and it has a round body, it's a bug. Okay? So who thinks that they made the best bug? You made the best bug. Can I see your bug, please? If you made the best bug, you gotta come up here. Can you bring that? That is really nice.
Mine is saying something funny.
Okay. Yes. So if you all think come up here, because I want everyone to see your amazing bugs. Yeah, hold it up. Look at this one. That is a dragonfly. That is really cool.
It's terrible drawing, but it says something funny.
Okay, so this one is a ladybug, but it says, I'm a fucking ladybug.
I'm a fucking lady.
All right. Oh, there you go. I love it. All right, thank you all so much. Okay, so what I think is interesting is nobody who connected the dots came up here and said they had the best bug. So to anyone who connected the dots, do you think that your bug looked good? No? Okay. So what were some limitations that the people who connected the dots had? What were some of your limitations? You could only draw a ladybug. That was it. Any other limitations? They all look the exact same? All right, folks who got to draw a bug, what were some of your advantages? Well, I asked this. Folks who had to connect the dots, what was an advantage? You don't have to think about it. You don't have to be creative. You know where to go next. It actually looks like a bug. You didn't have to dig deep like, ooh, I can't draw. How many people were like, she wants me to draw a bug and I cannot draw? So you didn't have to think about that if you had to connect the dots. It was just there. It was laid out for you. What were some advantages I'll ask this. What were some limitations for just drawing a bug? What were some Can't draw?
But I had to rely on being clever as opposed to being artistic.
Okay, so you had to rely on being clever as opposed to being artistic. All right. Any other limitations from just draw a bug? Okay, you didn't know a bug to draw. Did anybody draw a car? Okay, so I did this before somebody drew a car, and so one person wrote a bug. So you really didn't have directions, right? It just said draw something. But what were some advantages to just simply draw a bug? Yeah? Okay, you draw it the same way you always do, so you had a method and you knew how you were going to do it. What were some other advantages to your direction saying just draw a bug?
Making it my own.
You made it your own? It was fun. It was creative. Okay, it's your perception? Yeah. It's no failure. Because it's yours. Did anyone sit next to someone who got a connect the dots or a draw a bug and felt a little jealous, like, I wish I had those already. I wish I had that. Okay. So that is what adult-driven, adult-supportive can look like, right? So does anyone have kids? Yeah. I don't. But no, but I've worked with kids, and I know kids. I have nephews. They're little though. They don't do this. But have you seen these? If you have not had kids, work with kids, you have seen these before. I don't know who Caroline is. I got this off of Google, but I appreciate her and her parents for letting me use this. But you see, this is a beautiful picture of a feet ladybug, little fingerprint flowers, a fingerprint caterpillar. It is a beautiful picture. And somebody wrote her name on there too, really nicely. I was talking to this with my manager. She was like, oh man, she tried to put some feet prints on like an ornament for her son for like his first Christmas. And she was like, I had to force his foot down. But like you have to force it. And that's what like adult-driven looks like. You know you're gonna get a quality picture. You know that something is gonna look good, it's gonna look neat, it's gonna look nice. And you can introduce something new. I don't think that Caroline would have ever knew that she could make a butterfly out of her feet if her teacher didn't tell her that. So you can introduce new things when it's adult-driven. And that means that the adult comes up with the idea, and we say, here is a template, and you can do it, and you can flourish, and it can look nice. You can come up with a good product. And it's structured and it's focused. Those are benefits that are good. So when we think about like youth-led programming, prevention programming, when we have things like we do awareness events, or we have like say a SAM or something like that, if we lay out everything, we know that we'll have a good month that is impactful in results, right? Well, it's easy to get involved in that way, and it's simple, and you can get as many people as involved as you want to because they have the directions that are right there, and they don't really have to do much thinking about it, and sometimes that makes it easy to get people involved because they don't really think about it. I can just do. But there are setbacks. You lose all kind of creativity in that process, like we talked about. The results are forced. So I got results, but you gave everything except for actually putting the feet down and putting the thumbprint down. You all connected the dots, but I gave you the dots. And learning is objective. So you learned how to draw a ladybug, but it wasn't like you did it with your own creative mind or you didn't feel anything to it. You were forced to learn how to do it. So you probably are like, I remember times you had me draw that ladybug. I can do it now because you had dots before. But it's forced learning. And it's not like it mattered to you what you were drawing. So that's what adult-driven looks like. And so there are benefits, but there are also setbacks to being adult-driven. And then we have adult-supportive. So it kind of looks like this, like, just here's some paint and just do whatever you do. But when you're adult supportive, you're like, oh, look at that little rainbow in there. And how did you mix that color with that color? And look at that. I think that might look like a bunny rabbit in there a little bit. And so it's backing a person up. It's no failure, like you all said. And when it's adult supportive, it's like, you know what, this is your thing, and what you're doing is great because it's you that's doing it. And you're involved, and you're focused, and you have your own mind that came out of it. So an opportunity for creativity is endless. Learning is subjective. They have an investment in it. So when you drew your ladybug and said, I'm an effing lady, that is, you have some benefit in it. You say, I need to do something to make my bug the best bug, right? When you drew a dragonfly, I need to stand out because everybody else probably gonna draw a ladybug. So let me do something different. So you have an investment in it, and you feel like you're attached to what's happening. And it creates safety and emotional connections. One thing I really enjoy about doing adult supportive work is So I'll talk a little bit about, we have a Snapchat show called Talk About It Tuesdays. And when I get text messages like, how did I do? Was this okay? What do you think about this? Is it okay if I use this filter? I'm like, do whatever you want to do. And the product is like, great. Just to be able to say whatever you want, free range. Do what you want. That's it. Do what you want to do. And sometimes it's a little scary for the young people we work with because they're like, are you sure? You want me to do whatever I want? I'm like, I am absolutely, positively sure. And I know doing education like in schools, I don't know about anybody else, but I love when a young person says something that's totally off the wall. I love it. It's my favorite thing because it's like that is what you really honestly think. And that is what I know. I can teach you something that's going to stick with you. I will never forget, I was at a school and we were talking about SA and we're talking about coercion and consent. And a young man was like, so Tanji, you told, okay, I get it. Don't pressure, but how do I tell her I want to have sex with her then? And I was like, I'm not going to give you some lines, but what I will say is be respectful, be okay if the person doesn't want to, be sure about what you're saying, make sure that you both feel safe and comfortable, be honest about how you feel. Don't just assume the person knows you want. And you come up with your own language because that's kind of weird for me to tell you these lines. I won't give you that, but I will give you some things so you can make it your own. But there are setbacks. It is time consuming because you have to wait and you have to be patient and you have to just like hope that, you know, it's going to come across how you want it to come across. And it's an investment. Like, I did not realize when we started Let's Be Real how many text messages I would have. And that's why we did GroupMe too, because you can DM, but I would get DMs like all times of night. Like, I'm on the West Coast, you're on the East Coast, or vice versa. Like, it's early in the morning right now. It is 5 a.m., but you text me before school, whatever. It takes time. It takes time to work through things. It can be unfocused sometimes. Sometimes it's like all over the place. It's haywire. It's like really no direction. And it's risky because you don't know what people are going to come up with or say. It's like, I hope that it's all right. I hope that it's okay. And it's hard to kind of straddle that line between that adult-driven, I'm telling you what to say, and you using your own voice. And that can be hard because we still have stuff that we want to put out there. We still want to educate and teach. So I like to think about the balance between the two. There is a way that you can be adult-driven and adult-supportive at the same time. So I'm going to show you kind of how we do that at Break the Cycle and through Let's Be Real. One thing that we do, too, is we have an adult ally movement because we have folks that are over 24. They're like, I want to get involved and I want to do things. And so that is, we call it Lena. And through Lena, we have that space to be way more adult-driven so we can get all that stuff out. Like, we give Lena, like, that, because that's what adults like a lot of times. Like, give me tasks, I'll do the tasks. And that's what we have that for. But Lena is also a support system for Let's Be Real, too. And we're actually in the process of, like, renaming it and rebranding it and reframing it so that they can, the folks and the parents and the supporters and the educators that want to get involved can be adult supportive to our Let's Be Real members. So it's not just us all the time. So we have more folks that are there and that are supportive. So what our hope is right now is to make Lena that balance between adult supportive and adult driven. So one thing that we do with adults is called Speak Your Speak. One activity we had, it was not last summer, it might have been the summer before last, right when I started, we had a chat on Facebook and we posed questions like, in our leader Facebook group, what's bae mean? And somebody actually did say, like, is that short for Beyonce? No. So then we asked the young people that we work with, what does bae mean? And they gave us answers, and we say, hey, this is what it actually means. Or even, like, Netflix and chill. So to, like, an adult, I mean, like, yeah, I'm about to watch Grey's Anatomy and just kind of call it a night. But for a young person, Netflix and chill can mean we about to have sex. So one thing we started with is changing our language and how we say things. And we know that language is evolving and it's changing, but you won't get that language unless you ask questions. What does that mean? What do you think about this? One of our Real Talk sessions, we asked like about dating, like, do you call it that? And they're like, sometimes, but what else do you call it? And I learned a new word when I was in Wisconsin, and they said, oh, it's a thing. Like we say, oh, we're a thing. And we went to Minnesota later, and I was in D.C., and I was like, do you all say a thing? And they were like, oh, yeah, we can be a thing. I was like, okay, so this is actually a word that you all use, which was different from, like, me coming from Detroit. Some people sometimes use that, or even a word like a roster. When I came for my interview with Break the Cycle, they were like, a roster? What is that? I said, they don't say that out here? Oh, a roster is when you just have a team of people, and you just can pick and choose who you want. And then is this person not working out, then you just get somebody else. And so we talk a lot about language, and we want to make it more appealing because that makes it more relatable. If I sat and said a bunch of adult words, it's like, okay, I'm not whatever age. Dating is such an adult kind of word. We're just kicking it. We're just hooking up. We're just hanging out. Okay, hey, that's what you're doing. But just know that has a possibility of being healthy, unhealthy, or even abusive. So what does that look like if somebody is like that? If you're just kicking it with somebody, how could that be abusive? So we use that language and then mold it and shift it to fit the education that we provide. So here are some of my favorite quotes that we've gotten from young people at Real Talk sessions. So we don't ask, like, what is consent? The way I frame it is, how do you let somebody know you want to have sex? And how does somebody know you want to have sex? And it was a young man who gave me the top one. He said, I just usually send a text message saying my parents are gone, aren't home. So if she says a smirk face, then I know, or like a devil smile, that she down. I know she want to do it. But if she just says okay or says why she can't come, I know that she doesn't want to, and I take that as like no. And I was like, so like, is that cool? So in this situation, I was talking to a group of guys and I was talking to a group of girls. And the group of girls that kind of mentioned that, I was like, this is what I heard. Is that true? They were like, yeah, that's true. And this is what we know. So they know if I say I gotta go wash my dog, that means I'm not coming over and I want to have sex. Or if I just say, okay, that means I don't want to have sex. But if I send that smirk, then that means yeah. Or a tongue out or something like that, that means I want to do it. I was like, okay. So do you talk about it afterwards? And we like create conversation after that, like the real how do you know? Are you making your intentions known? And some other things, these were young ladies that said at the bottom, like, sometimes my boyfriend takes no as an insult. It's not, I just don't want to do it. So saying, like, sometimes he just gets offended, and I don't know why. Like, I just don't feel like it, and that's totally cool that I don't feel like it. It makes me feel valued when someone asks if I want to have sex, so it's not lame. It doesn't ruin the mood. If somebody asks if you want to have sex, we had said already, asking doesn't kill the mood. And these are quotes from young people that I was like, wow. And they were like in high school, and I was like, that is so, you already have this. It's not me saying, this is what coercion sounds like, or this is what consent sounds like. Like, what does that sound like? And if they say something that's super problematic, like, yeah, she gave me this smile, and I was like, yeah, she want to do it. No, how do you know? Because you didn't ask questions. So I use that as a space to make it comfortable and say, I hear what you're saying, but what about this? Just asking a bunch of whys and questions. And then sometimes we talk to young people who are in like youth leadership and peer leadership. So I asked, like, what makes you want to get involved with something? Like, what would make you want to like join? And they said, well, I get involved because it's people I know who are doing it. My friends are doing it, so that's why I want to do it. And then use social media. So if you're using social media, you're on the right track because they said use Snapchat, Instagram, use all that stuff because that is what we use now. And if I can do that, if I can join this on my phone, then I'm good. And that's a question I get a lot. Like, do I have to come to a meeting? It's like, no. So I can do this from my phone. Yes. Okay, I'll sign up. And then one question I had too, I was always interested, especially because I know starting as a young person in high school who is essentially teaching about this, like, do you have pressure to like have this perfect kind of relationship? And I think as like prevention educators in general, like having that perfection, I was wondering, like, do you feel that pressure to like to practice what you preach? And they say, yeah. Sometimes we recognize it's hard because we can't recognize if someone is abusive or I recognize something that's being abusive and the other person doesn't. Or someone said too, like, sometimes I wonder, am I looking in this too much? Is this actually something? And that's an honest pressure. So that's something we also have to think about too. We're asking young people to go out and educate, but we got to make sure they're taking care of themselves too. We got to check in with them and see how they're feeling. So this is my favorite part because you can see all the cool stuff we're doing. If you are on any social media, if you took a picture, tag Break the Cycle on Twitter because they asked me to take pictures and I didn't. But here are some things that we do. So we use we use a lot of social media. So when I talked about that group me conversation, this is our group chat. So this is our idea flow. So it's hard, but it said, like, this is how when they came up with the name, this is actually the moment they came up with Let's Be Real. So a person says, so, let's be real. That's my vote. I'm okay with Let's Be Real. Feel free to vote for, that's me. There's some other ideas out there. Let's be real. It looks like, you all voted for that. Let's Be Real has my vote. I vote Let's Be Real. So we were like, I guess we have a name. Okay. And that, I don't know if you can see the timestamp, but that happened like over the course of like 30 minutes. But this was a weekend conversation. This was the very end. We're like, all right, we got to pick a name. And the one in the middle, that's a young person. This is after we were like a little bit more established. She posted, like I posted this on my Snapchat, what do you guys think? And there was a bunch of stuff for Teen Dating Violence Awareness Month. So she put on her personal Snapchat without us saying, hey guys, post this on your Snapchat. She did it herself, like randomly, and put it on there. We're like, oh, that's cool. Like, that's great. We gave her this stuff and said, hey, you can have this, use it however you want to. Yeah.
And for the purpose of grants, that shows like a focus group or
Mm-hmm.
interaction with the young people.
Yes, exactly.
So it's able to be used in evaluation.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We have also shifted to a lot of storytelling and using things like this because focus groups are cool, but it's perfection. Like this allows you to be who you are. And we make it open. You can drop in and drop out whenever you want to. You don't have to stay in here all day, mute it. Because you can put it on mute and you don't have to look at it. Or you can. Sometimes people just kind of pop in and say things. So another one, like I asked, like when 13 Reasons Why came out, like, anybody see this? And I think I said, like, don't spoil it, no spoilers, because I watched it in like 2 days. So this was like day 2 when it came out, like, don't spoil it. And then like, this was unprompted, like I just popped in and asked this question. It wasn't like we had a meeting scheduled or anything like that. And those are the comments we got, like, yeah, I watched it. It was like really super intense. I thought it was great. And we had a conversation based off of that. And then I'm like, does anybody want to write something about this or a blog? Like, they're like, oh yeah, cool, I'll write one. And that's how we get content. It's not like, sometimes we do a little bit of both. Sometimes we will put out, hey, a call for content, but other times it's like this. If someone has an interest, like write a blog about it, post something about it. So social media, other social media networking, YouTube. So we have a lot of videos on YouTube. I want to share one of them with you, which was actually made by one of our adult coalition members, but she gathered some young people that she knew and made this video. It's like one of my favorite things in the world.
Hi, world. That's it. That's all I got. Things that I wish that I could say to an ex. It wasn't my fault. It was not my fault. Even though you wanted to place all the fault on me, it was not my fault.
What's in the past is in the past. All you can really do is worry about the future and just the next person you meet, I guess.
Why did you do those things? Sorry. Like, it hurts.
I just hope that he has learned from his mistakes because I obviously don't want any girl to go through what I went through with him.
I guess I would probably want to say to one of my exes, just like, I hope you're doing better, basically. Like, it didn't work out for a reason, and I hope you found someone that you deserve to be with.
So that's just an example of how we use like our Love Is Not Abuse, our adult coalition members to support the work for young people. So that's just one way. That's an adult supportive way where it's like open and it's not like they weren't forced to say anything. They came up with that stuff all on their own. We also use Spotify. So sometimes we reach out or we ask questions, or like if people want to come visit us in our office, I'm like, okay, come. And we listen to music, or I ask them like, what song do you think will fit with this, or what song are you listening to? One of the real talk questions that we ask, because they're not always about relationships or anything like that. One question we ask is, if you had a song that was on a soundtrack to your life and it was the main song, what song would it be? And I collect the answers and make playlists out of them so that they can listen to it like, oh, look, I made this playlist like with all of your answers. So I have like a big list of like random songs on there, but we use that as a way too to say, you know, if you're able to pick out a song that's your soundtrack, that's like self-awareness. That's being able to think about it. And that's a conversation starter too, because it's not easy to start conversations about abuse or relationships. So we talk about music, because music is so universal and everybody loves it, and it's like, ooh, what's that song? And I mean, if we're really into it, sometimes I'll start to play it on my phone because I pay for Spotify. So sometimes I'll play it like, oh, this is a song, oh, this is a really cool song. I'm gonna use this for something. So that creates that relationship there too. And then we do ask questions like, this month for Pride, we're like, okay, so what are some questions of like some songs about like being free? What kind of songs are you listening to? And I had a couple people in there like a few weeks ago, and we were just sitting and listening to music for like an hour. But that created that relationship, and that created some safe space. And for it to not always be like, I'm just trying to get something out of you, or I'm just trying to get content or information. It's like, I'm really into music too, so let's find that common ground between the two of us. So Snapchat is our favorite. We love Snapchat because it's so easy and it's so simple, and that is what the young folks are on right now, including myself. So we have a show, and I'll talk about it a little bit more in a minute, called Talk About It Tuesdays. So what it is we get anonymous questions, and we answer them on Snapchat while we eat tacos. So I'll show you an example of what that looks like. And I do it sometimes, and our social media coordinator, she do it sometimes, and our SB Real members, they do it a lot, and they grab their friends, and it's just like, here is our Snapchat information, here's the login, here are the questions, go for it. And I'll talk more about that. I don't want to get ahead of myself. So another thing we had that was really cool for Teen Dating Violence Awareness Month, we were able to partner with Futures Without Violence, and we ended up getting like a little filter. So we had like a Facebook Live Real Talk, and then we got filters, and they were just on Snapchat, just having the whole day out of it. And that's like a goal. Like, I really just want to get like a Snapchat to get on and just have like everybody have a filter everywhere for like Awareness Month, because that is what it is. Like, filters, that is like the most simple, genius thing ever, just to have a filter somewhere. Get out of here. Oh, thank you. Canva for Business. Perfect. Thank you. So I talked about Real Talk. So another thing we do is we Snapchat a lot of stuff. So if we go out somewhere, we're on Snapchat. And so last fall we did a Real Talk tour, like around the Midwest. So I want to show you all a video of what that would look like and how we like do a takeover. And for us, it's like we are on like Facebook and Twitter and stuff like that on GroupMe, and they see pictures of us, but they don't see us, how we actually are and our personalities. This makes it so they just see us, and they know like, I'm the same person you're talking to. It's just still me, Tanji. And like, our name is like the contacts to sign up for Let's Be Real. Our names are on there, and this shows like we're real people. We're not just like a name. This is a real person. So I want to share this with you all too.
Hey, it's Rachel and Ton.
Sorry. Okay, so that is what Talk About It Tuesday looks like, and it takes about an hour to do, and it is like a minute long. But my favorite part of it is that, what did I do? Okay. My favorite part of it is that we're able to educate them while they educate other people. So it's not like a formal training. If you want to be on our Snapchat, you have to do this 12-hour training. It's not like that. We make it very individual. But that's that part of adult supportive that's time-consuming, because it takes time, because with every person, We're talking about what the answers are. But sometimes it's important to make that investment if you want to get things like that. If you want them to feel free enough to have a dance break in the middle of this thing that is for, it's for like a company's Snapchat, but they have that freedom to do that. The last episode, we had one of the young people we work with and her boyfriend were on it. She was like, "Hey, my boyfriend come?" I was like, "Yeah, let him come. I want him to come." And they were able to talk about it together. So we try to make it as like diverse and open as we can. I'm on there sometimes if I have like a fellow peer educator friend. I'm like, "Hey, hop on this with me. Just answer some questions." Or if they're like I said, people visit us in the office. Like, "Hey, come to the office. We have tacos at our office on Tuesday, every Tuesday. So if you want to come and to talk about it Tuesday, you can come." And we leave it open. So this is really new. We started this in April, so we're still like working it out, still getting people involved. Hey, if you're an educator, you want to hop on, we are so open to that. We want you to. We want it to be a space where people can get their questions answered, and we can just eat some tacos and talk about relationships and answer questions, because we do have some questions that are like really more serious and really like we need like a little bit more education behind it, and those questions we block them off like, "Hey, this is for one of the adults to answer. It's one of us to answer." So the question lists I give them are like, how do you deal with that? Because they're the best ones to answer how you deal with college relationships. Because I'm in school now, but like I'm not 19 in college, So we give them that space, but we do make sure that we kind of limit the questions if they are a lot more serious. So other methods that we use, creativity. So you see this. This is actually a shirt a young person made. So this is one of my favorite parts. I keep on saying I can't have all these favorites, but I do. I really do. Like, everything is my favorite. But as a young person that we work with, she was so anti this when we first started. She was like, "Oh, like, I don't want to sign up." She was someone that one of our staff members knew, and we were like, she should get involved because, like, it's a cool thing to get involved in. She was like, I guess. But we had an art contest, and we said, in your own way, tell us what love means to you and draw it. And we had some entries, and people submitted things, and then we had 2 finalists. So these shirts up here are finalists. And then for Teen DV Month, we had a campaign where people were able to purchase the shirts, and then they were able to like raise money for Break the Cycle, but also have their artwork on there, and people are walking around. So as many presentations as I can, as much as I go out, I make sure I wear at least one of the shirts, because I think it's important to show, like, this is a young person who was so anti this work, anti-prevention education, and she has her artwork here. So since then, like, she's super involved. She actually hosted our last Talk About It Tuesday with her boyfriend. So she's like, "What can I do now?" And she, like, her school counselor contacted me and was like, "She told me about this group. Like, can you come in and do a real talk?" So, but it was activated from what was already inside of her and what it was already important to her. So we said, "Oh, you like art? Do some art stuff, and we'll figure out a way to make it work." In the middle, that picture's a little bit dark, but that is LBR member we have called named Scarlett Delemy, and she's a singer, and she wrote a song called "That's Not Love," and she was like, "Hey, so I wrote this song, and I have like this little video. Can you all post it on your social media?" And we're like, "Absolutely, we can." And then we end up having like a Facebook Live concert. So like, she was there with like her guitar player, and we just let her have our Facebook Live for like an hour, and she played her music and her songs. And in there, it's still on our Facebook page too. She talks about like how it's open, and we just give that space to do that. She made like a bigger music video, and we had Let's Be Real members make signs for the video, and it was her thing. But that was still her way of being involved and being an activist. We didn't force her to come to a meeting and come to a rally or do anything like that. It's like, use whatever you have. And that's that educing, going back to what we talked about in the beginning and drawing from what's already there. And then we do blog posts. So sometimes people just want to write stuff. Like, I just want to share my story, or I just want to tell, I want to tell a story. I want to educate people. I'm like, cool. What do you want to write about? Write about what you want. That's fine. And we give them that space. So we've had like some great blog posts from young people. We have a section called Real Stories, and it's just them, and they're talking about abuse. They talk about, like, one of them, was about like hooking up safely. Another one was like being in college and hooking up safely. Another one was about being like a young person and entering high school and like those butterflies about like dating in a whole new different world. So we've had like some super cool things that have come from our blogs. So that is on Break the Cycle's website if you want to look at them. It's just under Real Stories. And then peer education, right? So we still do that. And we do that through Real Talks. So like I mentioned before, young people will contact us and say, hey, I want to host a Real Talk. Or I want to do something at my school to raise awareness. What can I do? And say, okay, you can host a Real Talk. So we have a guide that's available for anyone to download. And then if they want to have a more intense conversation, I say, hey, let's set up a time to talk. What kind of questions do you have? Do you know what you want to talk about? And, you know, do you have resources? Do you need me to send you some stuff? And we create a relationship in that way, but it also is like a training for them to do peer education. And they're able to talk about things that are important to them. So one of our members, she posted and grouped me like, I want to do a Real Talk. And I'm like, oh, and somebody, I wasn't even looking at, somebody was like, ask Tanji about it. And I'm like, you rang? Yes. And she was like, yeah, I want to do this. So we hopped on the phone, we talked about it, and then she like ended up making a video like at her school about dating violence, and she had her teachers in there, and I was like, you did it. Like, can you post this on social media? We're like, yeah. So it's on our YouTube page. So sometimes they do things like that, and it's not us that's like, make a video. It's them making their own and doing things that they want to do, and we're just there to support them and say, hey, this is really cool, and we're validating what they want to do. So we talked about data, because that's the important stuff, right? We want to make sure that we're recording our information. So Facebook and Twitter and LinkedIn, they do it for you. So that's the good part. They tell you how many people viewed it, how many people liked it, what time of day works the best, and they give that information already. Snapchat and Instagram are a little bit more tough. I didn't really talk about our Instagram page, but on there, we also collect artwork. Our Instagram is more focused on like pop culture. So if someone sends us a meme that's really funny or really wrong or really bad, we post it on Instagram. But our Snapchat, we do a 24-hour watch. So we record like, okay, we started, and it's like really manual. We started doing this at 5:06. We want to make sure that we look at how many views we had, how many screenshots we had, how many DMs we had by 5:06 the next day. And that's how we record it. So that is the time-consuming part, but it's worth it because we're able to see like, oh man, people are actually watching this. How many people watched the entire video? If we know we have 100 followers, if 45 people watched it today, did 45 people, do we still have those same 45 people like tomorrow? Or was it like 42? Did some people drop it off? Maybe it was too long. So it's a lot of groundwork, and I have to give kudos to our social media coordinator, Rachel, because she is like the person that does that. I set that part up, and she is the data grabbing person. And then you can also track growth and updates using Storify. So if we do something on Twitter or have like our Real Talks, we use the hashtag BTC Real Talk. We can pull that, and it'll create like a cute little story and all information and impressions on there for us. So that is another way to track it. So someone mentioned, when we do Real Talk sessions and do like formal education things, we do pre and post tests. But this is another way that we show like impressions and impact. Is like our young people retweeting and reposting. Is it cool enough for them to do that? Because a lot of people didn't even want to follow us on stuff, or they say, "Don't follow me. I'm not following you on Snapchat because I don't want you to follow me back." It's cool. We won't follow you back on there because it's a private kind of thing. So. How many people are like screenshotting? Because sometimes that will happen. So we look at those kind of things, and we talk to our funders about that stuff, because that's really what it comes down to, right? Is like we have to show that we're making an impression. And I know, being a prevention educator, we rely heavily on pre and post tests, and this is how we gain knowledge. But is it subjective, learning? Like, are they really caring about it? And this, for us, shows, like, they're learning, but they also care about what they're learning. They also are invested in their own knowledge and their own education. So barriers. So I know I've been talking a lot. And I want to hear from you all, but some of the barriers we have are lack of interest. I'm not going to sit here and paint a pretty picture and say that we have involvement all the time, because we don't. It comes sporadically, but that is the benefit of having like activism be what you want it to be. So we don't expect people to be fully involved all the time. But sometimes that lack of interest can be hard. But we try to figure out other ways. So maybe what we're doing is not working, and it makes us question ourselves and really ask, is this not working is because it's motivated by us? Are we kind of moving into that adult-driven space? So how can we go back to being more adult supportive? Funding. So things cost money. Social media doesn't cost money. So we find ways to be involved, because we can't bring all of our Let's Be Real members together at one time. That would be very expensive. So we think about, how can we do this for free, or how can we do this for low cost? Evaluating. We kind of talked about that before, like evaluating impact. We use storytelling a whole lot, but sometimes if you have, like, say if you wrote a proposal and you know you want to hit these key things, sometimes we have to mold ourselves to hit what we said we would hit. If we said people are going to learn about this, we have to make sure that we include that on there. So that can be a barrier, because sometimes we do have to be more adult-driven and results-driven. Lack of focus, like I mentioned earlier, is a barrier for adult supportive, when we kind of just leave it up to the young folks to do things. Sometimes it's just like, come on, we're talking about this, we're trying to do this, and it will be everywhere. And then, like I mentioned, low level of engagement. So we'll have some times where it's like really cool and popping around awareness months, but then come March, it's crickets, you know? So how we have to think about that. How can we maintain that? So Let's Be Real is very new. We just celebrated our 1 year. We haven't actually picked a date yet, because, you know, I don't remember what that group me said, whatever that date is. It's June, because it's right when I started. So we're at like 1 year. So this is what we've done in a year. So it's a process, and we're ever changing, ever growing. We visualize, we talk about it a lot, because we know that we can't stick to one thing and make it that. This is something that we are constantly looking at and evaluating and seeing how we can be more youth-led. Even with like our handouts that we put out, we ask ourselves 2 questions. How do we know that they want this? And is it youth-informed? Like, did somebody see it and say this was cool? Like, how do we know this is benefiting them? Yeah. So we are over time. Thank you all for hanging out. But if you have questions, I'm here. I'm hanging out. I'm here for the rest of the time period. Appreciate you all for coming and hanging out.
Thank you for listening to this Prevent Connect podcast. Prevent Connect is a project of the California Coalition Against Sexual Assault, with funding from the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. The views presented on Prevent Connect are not necessarily the views of the United States government, the CDC, or CalCASA. To learn more about Prevent Connect, visit www.preventconnect.org. For more information about CalCASA's mission, or to show your support, visit calcasa.org. That's CalCasa.org.